My name is Brian Wadell, and I'm the Director of Reprographics at University of California, Davis. Some of you may have heard of the university but don't know where Davis is. To kind of triangulate a little bit, if you take these two fires that are burning out of control in Northern California right now, one's on our west and one's on our east. We're kind of right in the middle of those two. So pray for rain, those of you who are inclined to pray. Anyway, UC Davis is one of the 10 campuses within the UC system. It's a land-grant university, major research institution, the home of the only veterinary school in the state of California. So there's a lot of things that we have to be proud of there. We provide print services as well as other services on a non-mandatory, non-right of first refusal basis. Clients can get print from anywhere that they want to. So we have to continue to earn that privilege. So one of the decisions that we made a few years ago that has been very helpful in our success has been to implement a web-to-print strategy. We looked at several of the vendors. We even considered doing something on our own. And after a great deal of research, we liked a lot of the products that were out there, but after a great deal of research, we selected the RSA product, WebCRD. And we've been very successful with that. Our initial thought was if we could get 10% of our quick copy and color copy volume to come through the web to print in the first year, I'd be happy with that. We actually achieved about 12% the first year, and we're now up to about 30% of that quick work that comes through through that portal. One of the benefits, well, I'll say one of the barriers to start with was staff, especially some long-term staff, who didn't want to embrace any technology that was going to eliminate jobs. And they were very, very clear to me about that. One particular CSR who was obviously putting up a lot of roadblocks towards the implementation, just one day came to me and even with tears in her eyes said, "I am not going to support anything that's going to eliminate jobs." And I said, "I'm not going to eliminate jobs as a result of implementation of this. We're going to expand. We're going to grow the pie." She finally saw that that's what was happening, and she did buy onto it. And like I say, I feel like we've been very successful with that. One thing that we've added since we started initially was we added the Dynamics module, which is a variable data module through the web to print. And the main reason that we did that is we produce all the business cards for the university and the health system, but there's also one system-wide department, Agriculture and Natural Resources, that does business all throughout the state. And they came to us to see if we'd print their business cards. And we worked through a process, started doing some business cards. It became obvious that they had more variation than was necessary, not necessary, they thought it was necessary, more variation than we were capable of doing without some additional help. And so we added the Dynamics module, and now we're producing business cards for A&R throughout the state, shipping them out on a regular basis. One other thing that I wanted to mention, kind of been talked about already, and that is the creative side. We've always had graphic artists. We've always had designers on staff, but we're a big university. We have 30,000 students, and every staff member thinks they're a designer because they've got Microsoft Office that includes Publisher and PowerPoint on their desktop. Many of them have felt like they've graduated from that, and they've moved on, and they've actually convinced their staff or their supervision to buy Creative Suites. So we're getting all kinds of files that are not printable from people who don't know how to use InDesign, that are trying to use InDesign, and then send them in, and then the files don't print. So to assist in that effort, one of the things that we have implemented is that our lead publications coordinator, she does client services work, but she also is the main one that coordinates the purchasing of our outside print when we need to buy outside print. She came and offered, and I accepted, and 3 times a year she teaches through our staff development program a class called InDesign for Beginners, taught by a beginner. And It's had an amazing impact just reaching out and trying to be connected with the mission of the university of teaching and education. It's had amazing impact on people who previously weren't sending their print to us, that attended the class, or someone from their department attended the class, and they're so appreciative for what they learned that now that print is coming our direction. But the other part I was going to say on graphic design is we're kind of fragmented, as I believe Tammy mentioned. We're fragmented with reporting to all different vice presidents. And the campus marketing and campus communications departments report through a different structure than we do. And we try to work very closely with them. But a year ago, they brought in new leadership for that department, and she decided that the on-hand or in-department designers that they had, the graphic artists, needed to be involved in university-wide branding work, so they systematically started just telling people they couldn't do their design work. Well, thankfully, I have developed over the years a really strong relationship with the director of marketing, who he reported to this woman, and as he saw this happening, he would immediately then go to these departments and say, you know, but Reprographics has great designers, go to them. So one of the things that I did with 3 different departments, I kind of broke the rules a little bit. I've looked around. I don't think there's anyone in here that knows my boss. Michael, you don't know my boss, do you? But we kind of broke the rules a little bit. We have set rates for everything that we do that have to be approved by a rate committee in advance. And I looked at these 3 departments, 2 of them being very high profile. One of them being the Chancellor's Ceremony and Events Department, and the other one being the Development Office that does all of the asking for money. So they're both very high profile. I created for each of them a retainer agreement for graphic services as opposed to an hourly recharge. So they commit to a certain amount of work that they'll give us over a certain period of time, and I commit to a bulk dollar charge as opposed to having the clock running like most of our other clients do. It's worked out in a manner that this last year our graphics department, this is the first year in the 8 years that I've been there that graphics has made money. We've always had them as a needed service, but now they're actually making money. Then the last thing I wanted to mention, and how I am sorry this is a surprise because I don't think I mentioned this in our phone call, but thinking forward, looking forward as to where we're going. One of the areas that I'm looking at very seriously is 3D printing. Not just because it's fun, and it is fun. We bought a little desktop model and we make models of everything, and it's really fun to take a picture or take a scan of somebody and then print their bust, and it looks just like them. But because there appears to be a large need on our campus, in our university. Now, certainly we can't afford to buy the $1 million plus 3D printers that our biomedical engineering team is using, and you may have read about them even in the paper or read about them online. They're printing parts that are being implanted in animals and humans. They were the first area that, excuse me, that I'm aware of, that there was a dog that came into the vet hospital that had cancer in its lower jaw, and they had to remove half of its lower jaw. And so the biomedical engineering team 3D printed a lower jaw that then the vets implanted, and that's been over a year ago, and the animal's thriving, doing quite well. So we're not going to compete with that, but what we've learned in doing some research is there are a lot of 3D printers on campus, but most of them are where I would call behind the wall. They were purchased with grant money. They were purchased with a donation from a certain donor, and they have very specific use. I've also learned that in our design departments and in our engineering departments, there are classes that require, as part of the coursework, requires students to submit 3D printed models. So they're trying to use the behind-the-wall devices to get that done, but they can't keep up with the demand. So I'm in discussion with both of those departments now, trying to figure out, is there something in our model where we're a pay-per-play model that we could do something that would get a 3D printer at a price range that we could afford, that we could then turn around and sell the models back to students or anybody else at a price they could afford too. So I haven't pulled the plug on that yet, but that's something we're looking at.